The morning rain tapped softly against the tall windows of the Massachusetts Historical Museum as curator Linda Chen gently unwrapped a package on her examination table. The donor, an elderly woman named Patricia, sat close by in a wheelchair, her granddaughter standing beside her protectively. "This photograph has been in our family for many generations," Patricia said, her voice weak but steady. "My grandmother kept it in a special frame on the mantel. She used to tell us stories about the people in it. The Morrison family are relatives from the 1890s. Linda lifted the photograph from its wrapping. The image, mounted on thick cardboard backing typical of that period, was remarkably well preserved. 6 people stood posed in a Victorian garden, formal and serious, frozen forever in time. The sepia colors had only faded a little, and the details were still sharp. "It's beautiful," Linda said, studying it with a magnifying glass. "The clothing, the garden, the way it's composed. This is a wonderful example of family portrait photography from the 1890s. Patricia leaned forward slightly. "My mother always said there was something special about that picture, something important, but she never told us what. She would just stare at it like she was holding a secret." Linda entered notes into the catalog system. "Do you know anything about the people in the photograph? Their names, what they did?" Patricia's granddaughter opened a folder. The photo is dated 1895. It was taken in Worcester, Massachusetts. That's Henry Morrison and his wife, Eleanor. Their 4 children are Thomas, William, Margaret, and little Clara. Linda examined each face closely. Henry, the father, sat in the center with the posture of a man used to authority. Eleanor beside him looked graceful but distant. The children seemed to be between 6 and 14 years old. 2 boys stood behind their parents, and 2 girls sat in front. "Your family history is impressive," Linda said. "We'll digitize this photograph for our archives. High-resolution scans can reveal details the eye can't normally see." "That's exactly what I was hoping for," Patricia replied quietly. "My mother always said the truth was in the details. Maybe now someone will finally understand what she meant." Linda smiled, thinking it was just sentiment. She had no idea that within 48 hours those scanned details would uncover a secret the Morrison family had hidden for over 100 years. A secret hiding in plain sight, waiting for modern technology to bring it into focus. She carefully logged the photograph into the museum system, assigned it a catalog number, and scheduled it for digitization. Outside, rain continued to fall on the streets of Boston, where the Morrison story had started long ago. Marcus Webb adjusted the museum's high-resolution scanner, preparing for what he thought would be a routine day. The machine could scan at 2,400 dpi, revealing details invisible in the original print. "Got a nice family portrait from the 1890s, his assistant Jamie said, placing the Morrison photograph on the scanner bed. "The curator wants full documentation, faces, clothing, background." Marcus started the scan. The light slowly moved across the image, capturing tiny details. Minutes later, the digital file appeared on the monitor, massive and sharp. "Beautiful clarity," Marcus said, zooming in. "Look at the texture of the mother's dress. You can see the threads in the lace." Jamie leaned in as Marcus studied each face. The father's stern look, the mother's quiet sadness, the children's stiff stillness, all clear in striking detail. Then Marcus zoomed in on the oldest boy's face. He stopped. "Jamie, look at this." The boy on the left, maybe 13 or 14, wore a formal jacket and held a serious expression, but his eyes made Marcus freeze. "Is that—" Jamie started. "Heterochromia," Marcus finished. "Complete heterochromia. One eye dark brown, almost black, the other blue-gray." They stared at the screen. The condition was obvious when magnified. One eye warm and dark, the other pale and cool. "That's very noticeable," Jamie said slowly. "You'd think someone would have written about it." Marcus opened the documents Patricia had given them. Birth records, census forms, family papers. Every record described Thomas Morrison the same way. Brown hair, brown eyes. Nothing about mismatched eyes. "Maybe they mixed him up with another child," Amy suggested. Marcus zoomed back out to the full family image. Everything matched. This was clearly Thomas Morrison, the eldest child. He checked the other children. William had brown eyes. Margaret had brown eyes. Clara had brown eyes. Only Thomas had this unusual feature, and it was missing from every official record. "This doesn't add up," Marcus said. "Heterochromia isn't something you forget, it's obvious." Jamie took photos of the screen. "We should show this to Linda and Dr. Rashid. She handles family history cases." Marcus saved the files and added special notes to Thomas's image. As he did, he noticed Eleanor Morrison's expression again. Instead of calm pride, her face showed tension. Her jaw was tight. Her hand rested on Thomas's shoulder, gripping him too firmly. The fabric beneath her fingers was pressed down. She looked like she was holding him because she was afraid of losing him. Dr. Sarah Rashid spread papers across her desk while Marcus and Linda watched. As the museum's consulting genealogist, she had spent 3 days researching the Morrison family, and her face showed confusion. "This is one of the strangest cases I've seen," she said, pointing to a document. Thomas Morrison, born March 15, 1881, Worcester, Massachusetts. Parents Henry and Eleanor Morrison. School records say brown hair, brown eyes, 5'6". No mention of heterochromia. She opened the high-resolution scan on her laptop, but here it is, clear as day, complete heterochromia. He would have had this from birth. It doesn't appear later and it doesn't disappear. Linda leaned closer. "Could the records be wrong?" "Not all of them," Dr. Rashid replied. "Marriage license from 1905, brown eyes. Military registration from 1917, brown eyes. Passport application from 1920, brown eyes. Every single document says the same thing." Marcus added, "I checked the photo for damage or alteration. The eyes are real. It's original." Dr. Rashid opened a folder of letters. These are Eleanor Morrison's letters to her sister from the 1890s. She talks about her children often. Listen to this, written in 1896. "Thomas grows more like his father every day. The same dark eyes, the same serious nature." "Dark eyes," Linda repeated. "Not one dark and one light." "Exactly," Dr. Rashid said. She then showed a newspaper clipping, Worcester Daily Times, June 1895, a society note mentioning the Morrison family. It describes Thomas and William as having their father's dark coloring. Again, nothing unusual mentioned. She leaned back. So, either everyone who described Thomas for 40 years somehow ignored his mismatched eyes, which is nearly impossible, or the boy in this photograph was not biologically Henry and Eleanor's child. The idea hung heavy in the room. "You mean adoption?" Linda asked softly. "Informal adoption," Dr. Rashid said. "Formal adoption was rare back then. Families sometimes took in children quietly for many reasons." She opened census records. In 1880, Henry and Eleanor are newly married. No children. In 1890, they have 4 children aged 9, 7, 5, and 3. Thomas would have been 9. Marcus nodded. "So Thomas appears in their home around 1881, the same year he's said to be born." Dr. Rashid pointed at the photo again. The heterochromia would have been memorable. So either they hid him completely, which newspapers they didn't, or people knew the truth and kept quiet. The question is why? A week later, Dr. Rashid returned with more discoveries. She laid out census papers on the conference table. "I searched older records, looking for children with mismatched eyes around 1880 to 1882. Census takers sometimes wrote notes." She pointed to a page. 1880 census, Worcester, O'Sullivan family, Irish immigrants, father deceased, mother Margaret O'Sullivan, 1 male child about 3 years old. Note says, child has mismatched eyes, 1 dark, 1 pale. The room went silent. "O'Sullivan," Marcus said. "Irish." Dr. Rashid nodded. "Irish immigrants faced harsh discrimination then. No Irish need apply signs were everywhere." She continued, "Margaret O'Sullivan appears in city records as a laundress until 1881. Then she disappears. No death record. The child also disappears that same year, the year Thomas Morrison appears." She showed photos of Worcester's Irish neighborhood from the 1880s. Margaret lived 6 blocks from the Morrisons. Marcus studied the map, close enough for Eleanor to hire her for laundry. "That's my belief," Dr. Rashid said. "What happened to Margaret?" Linda asked. "Did she die?" "No," Dr. Rashid said. "She opened a worn journal. Eleanor Morrison's diary from 1881. Listen to this. I have made a decision Henry opposes, but my conscience demands it. A child should not suffer for circumstances beyond his control. I will give him safety, education, opportunity. I will give him our name." Silence filled the room. "She took him," Linda whispered. Dr. Rashid read more. "Thomas is settling in, though he wakes crying for her. I tell him his mother loved him." "Crying for her," Linda said. "So Margaret was alive?" Dr. Rashid kept digging. A historian later contacted the museum with hospital records. Margaret O'Sullivan had been attacked by her employer in April 1881 and hospitalized. Notes mentioned her fear for her young son. Another note said she was visited by Mrs. E. Morrison, who offered to care for the child during recovery. Later records showed false theft accusations against Margaret. If convicted, she would have gone to prison and her son to an orphanage. The final hospital paper read that her son was placed permanently with the Morrison family at her request. The truth had been there all along, hidden in a pair of mismatched eyes. Patient leaving Worcester to look for work in another place. Mrs. Morrison has given money to help with travel. Everything suddenly made sense. Eleanor had not taken the child by force. Margaret, facing prison and the almost certain loss of her son to cruel institutions, had been forced to make an unbearable decision. She could give him to a family who could keep him safe, or keep him herself and watch him suffer. She gave him up to save him, Linda said softly. Dr. Rashid looked again at the photograph, at Eleanor's hand gripping Thomas's shoulder. "And Margaret," she asked quietly, "did she survive?" Dr. Klausk's face grew serious. "I haven't found any death records, but I also haven't found any trace of her after she left Worcester." 3 days later, Patricia called the museum, her voice shaking with excitement. "My granddaughter and I have been searching my mother's house," she said. "Really searching. Pulling up floorboards, checking behind panels. My mother always said, 'There were secrets. We found something. Can we bring it to you?'" An hour later, Patricia and her granddaughter Jennifer arrived carrying a rusted metal document box. Linda, Marcus, and Dr. Rashid gathered in the conservation lab. "It was hidden in the wall of what used to be Thomas Morrison's bedroom," Jennifer explained, "behind loose boards near the fireplace. The house has been in our family since 1900, when Thomas bought it. The box had been hidden inside the chimney space." Dr. Rashid carefully opened it. Inside were several objects: a small child's shoe, worn and patched, a wooden toy horse, rough but clearly carved with care, a pressed flower. Beneath everything lay a letter sealed with old wax. The seal was cracked with age. Dr. Rashid gently broke it and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was shaky and uneven, written by someone with little schooling, forcing her thoughts onto the page. She read aloud, "To my son, if you ever read this, my name is Margaret O'Sullivan. I am your mother. You will not remember me, but I remember every moment with you. You had mismatched eyes like your grandmother, one dark and one light. People said it made you look strange, but I thought it made you beautiful. I am giving you to Mrs. Morrison because I cannot keep you safe. A cruel man is trying to harm us, and I have no way to protect you. Mrs. Morrison is kind, and she promised me you will have a good life with schooling, food, and safety. She promises to love you, and I believe her. I want to keep you so badly that my heart feels broken, but I love you more than I want you. Do you understand? I love you more than I want you. So I am letting you go where you will be safe and be happy. When you are grown, if you ever learn the truth, please know I thought of you every day. I worked hard and saved money, hoping that someday I might see you again, even from far away, just to know you were well. I never stopped being your mother, even though another woman will raise you. Your first word was bird. You loved watching them. I hope you still do. I hope you have a good life. I hope you are happy. I hope one day you forgive me. Your loving mother, Margaret O'Sullivan. May 5th, 1881. The room was silent except for Patricia's quiet sobbing. He knew, Linda finally said. Thomas found this letter. He kept it hidden all his life, but he knew. Dr. Rashid examined the other items. These are from his first 3 years with Margaret. Eleanor must have given them to him when she told him the truth. Patricia wiped her tears. My grandmother, Thomas's daughter, once told me something. She said her father used to stare at his reflection, studying his eyes. She asked why, and he said, "These eyes are my mother's gift. They show me who I really am." I thought he meant Eleanor, but he meant Margaret. Jennifer pulled out her phone. There's more. I've been looking into Thomas's later life. He became a teacher and worked in Worcester Public Schools for 30 years. But look where he taught. She showed a newspaper clipping from 1910. He taught at an Irish Catholic school, a Protestant man teaching Irish immigrant children. He went back to his community, Dr. Rashid said softly. Knowing where he came from, he chose to serve his own people. Dr. Rashid spent 2 more weeks searching for traces of Margaret O'Sullivan after she left Worcester. The trail was thin. A woman alone, Irish, moving through cities where records were poor and immigrant lives often went unrecorded. At last she found a possible lead in Baltimore. A Margaret O'Sullivan appeared in city directories from 1882 to 1890, listed as a seamstress. The address placed her in an Irish neighborhood near Fells Point. It's not certain, Dr. Rashid told the others. O'Sullivan is a common name, but the timing fits. She left Worcester in 1881. This woman appears in Baltimore in 1882. Marcus pulled up maps. Baltimore was a common destination for Irish immigrants with work in textiles and a large community. She could have disappeared into the crowd, he said. Dr. Rashid contacted St. Patrick's Church in Fells Point. They've kept records since 1850, she explained. The archivist found this. She showed them a scanned document dated April 1890. A death record for Margaret O'Sullivan, about 40 years old, occupation seamstress, cause of death pneumonia, buried in the church cemetery. The room grew quiet. She died only 9 years after giving him up, Linda said. Thomas would have been 12. There's more, Dr. Rashid added. The record includes a note. She left instructions about her savings. $47 to be held in trust for her son, if he could ever be found. Son's name Thomas. Distinctive feature, mismatched eyes, one dark and one pale. Marcus leaned forward. She saved money for him. For 9 years, Dr. Rashid said, working as a seamstress, saving every bit she could. And she never forgot his eyes, Patricia said. She described them exactly so they would know it was him. Jennifer asked the question everyone was thinking. Did he ever know about the money? Did anyone tell him she died? Dr. Rashid pulled up another document. The church tried to find the child. They sent letters to Worcester Catholic groups looking for a boy named Thomas with mismatched eyes. But Thomas was living as Thomas Morrison, attending Protestant schools, his Irish background hidden. The letters never reached him. So the money just stayed there, Marcus said. For 30 years, Dr. Rashid confirmed, until 1920, when the church transferred unclaimed funds to charity. The note says the trust was never claimed and was used to help orphans. Linda looked again at young Thomas in the photograph. He never knew she tried to care for him. I'm not sure that's true, Dr. Rashid said slowly. She opened another record. This is a church visitor log from June 1905. A man visited Margaret O'Sullivan's grave. The priest described him. Well-dressed, about 24 years old, with mismatched eyes. He spent a long time at the grave and left a donation of $50 for the orphan fund in her name. The room fell silent. He found her, Patricia whispered. Thomas found his mother's grave. $50, Marcus said quietly. Almost the same amount she tried to leave him. Dr. Rashid nodded. The note continues. The man asked if Margaret left any message. He was told about the trust fund. He seemed comforted knowing she had thought of him until the end. Patricia later returned with one final box containing Eleanor Morrison's personal papers from her last years. Among them was a sealed envelope, marked to be opened only by my children after my death. Eleanor had died in 1923, and her children had opened it but never shared it publicly. My grandmother kept this, Patricia explained. Thomas's daughter. She never showed it outside the family. But after everything we've learned, I think Eleanor would want the truth known. Dr. Rashid carefully opened the aged envelope, and removed several pages written in Eleanor's graceful handwriting, dated January 1923. She read aloud. "To my beloved children, there is something you must know about your father, Thomas. He was not born to Henry and me, though we loved him as deeply as any parents could. His true mother was Margaret O'Sullivan, an Irish woman of great courage and even greater love. In 1881, I learned that Margaret had been attacked by her employer and faced false charges that would send her to prison. Her son, your father, would have been sent to an institution where Irish children suffered terrible fates. Margaret came to me not asking for charity, but asking if I would save her child. I had recently lost a pregnancy and was grieving. Henry feared scandal, but I could not turn away from such love. We took Thomas, claimed him as our own, and raised him with every advantage our name allowed," she continued. "I believed Margaret would reclaim him one day, but she vanished, and I lost all contact. I kept Thomas's origins secret to protect him from prejudice. When Thomas was 16, I told him the truth and showed him Margaret's letter and belongings. I expected anger. Instead, he wept and said, 'She loved me enough to give me away.' He asked me to help him find her. We searched for years. By the time we found her grave in Baltimore, she had been dead for 15 years. Thomas never blamed me. He said he honored Margaret by living the life she wanted for him. But I carry the sorrow of knowing mother and son never met again. To Thomas's children," the letter said, "your father lived with two identities. He was Thomas Morrison, with all the privilege that name carried, but he was also Margaret's son, carrying her love and sacrifice in those eyes. He spent his life trying to use his advantages to help those who shared his birth mother's struggles. I do not know if my choice was right. I saved one child, but could not save his mother. These questions have stayed with me for 42 years. Know that I loved your father completely, and that Margaret's courage was the bravest thing I have ever seen. With eternal love, Eleanor Morrison." The final pages held a carefully kept photograph. A young Irish woman, about 25, with dark hair and tired eyes, holding a small boy on her lap. Even in the faded image, the difference in the child's eyes was clear. "Margaret and Thomas," Patricia said softly, "before everything fell apart. Eleanor kept this all those years. Dr. Rashid's final research revealed something remarkable. She contacted St. Patrick's Church again, asking for full donation records. 'Look at this,' she said, spreading out copies. Starting in 1905, the year Thomas first visited the grave, there was an entry. T. Morrison, Worcester, $50 for the Orphan Fund in memory of Margaret O'Sullivan. The same entry appeared every year after, every year from 1905 to 1951, 1 year before Thomas died, 46 years in a row, always $50, always in Margaret's name. Thomas visited her grave almost every year on May 5th, the day she wrote her goodbye letter. NDA calculated the value. $50 then was more than $1,000 today. For a teacher's salary, it was a real sacrifice. He never missed a year, Dr. Rashid said, no matter what was happening in his life. Patricia wiped her eyes. He couldn't bring her back, so he kept her memory alive and helped other children in her name. Jennifer showed records of Thomas's teaching career from 1903 to 1933, 30 years at St. Mary's Irish Catholic School. A note said he chose the position despite higher pay elsewhere because of his dedication to immigrant students. He went back, Marcus said, to the community he was born into. Photos of Thomas from later years showed the same mismatched eyes unchanged, linking him to Margaret across time and class. Those eyes led him back to her. 6 months later, the Massachusetts Historical Museum opened an exhibition called Hidden in Plain Sight, The Morrison Family Story. The center display was the 1895 photograph, enlarged so visitors could zoom in. A teacher named Daniel Chen stood with his students and pointed to Thomas's eyes. This photo hung in a home for 100 years, he said. People saw it but didn't truly look. A student said, "We miss things when we don't look closely." Daniel nodded. Thomas lived as a respected teacher, but his eyes told another story. The exhibit included Margaret's letter, Eleanor's confession, and church records. Patricia attended the opening. My mother said the truth was in the details she told visitors. She knew someone would look closely one day. A young Irish-American woman cried as she read Margaret's letter. Dr. Rashid later shared that scholars and historians from around the world had reached out. This story is about immigration, class, and survival, she said. But most of all, it's about love. The Irish Heritage Foundation announced a scholarship in Margaret O'Sullivan's name to support Irish-American students becoming teachers. Patricia smiled through tears. Margaret would have loved that. Marcus created a display showing Thomas's life, his teaching, his donations, his quiet work between two worlds. One photo from 1935 showed him with Irish-American children, many of whom later became teachers themselves. At the closing talk, Dr. Rashid said, "This began with a simple question. Why was Thomas's condition never recorded? The answer revealed a story of sacrifice and hidden lives. None of them got a perfect ending. But Thomas honored both mothers and both heritages. His eyes made sure the truth could not stay hidden forever." Visitors paused before Thomas's face, seeing not just unusual eyes, but a bridge between worlds. Patricia touched the screen gently. "Your eyes told your story when everything else tried to hide it," she whispered. Margaret would be proud. Eleanor would be at peace. Outside, sunlight filled the streets where old divisions once ruled. Inside the museum, it was clear that some bridges, built with love, last forever, especially when built by eyes that refuse to hide the truth.